All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Lee Velez. I'm here with Gabe, Manny, and Goose, who just bumped his head into the mic. My man, Shiny Object Syndrome. In this episode, the crew talks about gaining and losing focus on tasks. We cover topics that range from distractions, unfinished projects, multitasking, social media, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Daniel Goleman and Alexander Graham Bell. Guys, if you're new, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. With that being said, we like to kick things off with a definition, and this one's from UrbanDictionary.com. SOS, Shiny Object Syndrome, to be driven toward shiny objects, usually related to projects in the sense that you won't finish one project before starting a new one. Were you guys aware of this syndrome?
Never heard of it.
I've heard of it a long time ago. I heard of it, and I understood it right away. I actually thought the person who said it to us made it up. I didn't realize like other people knew what this meant. So I don't know, like I always think of like a baby, like my son Cade is like weeks old, right? And so at this point, I'm not, a doctor or have any, pediatric background at all, but I think that they see like shadows at this point. There's not like full color or anything, but enough for things that obviously catch his attention. And anything up against a light background, so let's say like a white wall and like, I forget where we were. I think my mother-in-law's house, and she had speakers hanging from the ceiling. He was just staring at, because the contrast is so great that it catches his eye. But then if you walk by him, he just kind of like then follows you, right? And then if someone else were to walk by, then he just follows them. That's not shiny object syndrome, but it's kind of like the same, if you could think of that concept. So anything that's like, that catches your attention, that's super attractive, that's shiny, whatever. So then it's like, it's appealing to you, and then you go from that to then the next thing that crosses your in your peripheral, then all of a sudden that gets your attention. So you're going from one thing to like another, but you have not finished what you're supposed to be finishing on this quote project. If it was a project, then something new pops up and you're like, oh, look at that, that's awesome. I want to jump over here. So then you just go from one thing to another without ever truly finishing one thing. There's people who literally live their lives like this. I think we all fall victim to it at some point, at some level. It's not, obviously it's all different degrees. And some people are just, a totally different scale. But does that make sense?
Is that like, I mean, I guess that's like short attention span type situations, but is that also like exacerbated by just like our technology nowadays anyway? Just like, oh, everything's always brand new. It's like you always have to. You're always striving for the next brand new shiny thing anyway, whether it be literally like new technology and stuff.
Yeah. So an example would be like phones or laptops or
and then you
computers,
get one,
whatever.
you want the new one.
Then another one comes out, and all of a sudden there's no need for you to get the other one, but you want it because it's new. It's more attractive than the other one. They versioned up on it. A lot of this is used through entrepreneurial endeavors, though. The shiny object syndrome. A lot of it is for marketing and like network marketing specifically. So there are so many, like home-based businesses that people were at one point, and I'm assuming that they still are, jumping from one to another within weeks, within months. So then that's a person who has, shiny object syndrome. If you gave something, like a good shot or something, a year, 2 year, 3 year thing, that's different than every 3 months, you're into a new program or to same. This happens a lot with diets. People are going from keto diets to Rito diets, and I mean as in Dorito diets. But and exercising too, right? I mean, you have like the CrossFit, and then you had that blew up, and then you have the not fit, and then the person actually blew up. So I mean, you have all kinds of things, but it's true that the fitness industry is always easy to give examples out of, because it's pretty much right in your face, I guess.
Cause it's funny because it was something fairly recent. I think it's like an old video, but it's like there's a Comedy Central thing where the guy does like all kinds of weird clips, whatever. But he did a thing where he literally like created a fad diet, out of some guy like he hired some guy like that who was at like a fitness like convention or something, and had him be the spokesman for this thing where the guy supposedly got like super buff off of just lifting boxes or lifting stuff around your house. And it was completely made up. And the local news picked it up and everything too.
No way.
And like you see like the after clips of it, they show him creating it and then the whole after effects of it. But it's like that whole thing, the fat thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Like that's a good example of it, you know, from one thing to another, jumping from whatever's in, we're doing it kind of thing. All right, so now that we defined shiny object syndrome, I pulled this little article from entrepreneur.com titled, "Do You Have Shiny Object Syndrome? What It Is and How to Beat It." So I guess now we're going to dive in on a more professional level, talking about this syndrome, this SOS. All right, it starts off by saying, as an entrepreneur juggling many different responsibilities, you'll likely find any illness will seriously set you back temporarily while you recover. But there's one thing that may powerfully have lasting effects on your business and extend far beyond a simple day or two of absence. It's called shiny object syndrome. And if it's plaguing you, you'll need to take action if you want your business to thrive. Shiny object syndrome in action. At its core, shiny object syndrome is a disease of distraction, and it affects entrepreneurs specifically because the qualities that make them unique. Entrepreneurs tend to be highly motivated. They crave new technology and new developments, and they aren't afraid to start new projects and create new things. Ordinarily, these are great characteristics, but when SOS sets in, it forces you to chase project after project and change after change, never settling with one option. It's called shiny object syndrome because it's the entrepreneurial equivalent of a small child chasing after shiny objects. Once they get there and see what the object is, they immediately lose interest and start chasing the next thing. For entrepreneurs, rather than literal shiny objects, SBOs may be business objectives, marketing strategies, clients, or even other business ventures. All right, so that breaks it down a little bit. I like the distraction, the disease of distraction part. That's pretty cool. So they say when SOS gets bad, wanting to keep your business updated and staying abreast of new possibilities aren't inherently bad goals. However, SOS becomes rampant. Entrepreneurs experience some or all of those serious drawbacks. Number one, inability to finish projects. When you get excited about a new project before your first one is complete, you may jump ship before you can see any meaningful results. Number two, poorly planning your ideas and directives. People with SOS tend to focus on the novelty of pursuing a given strategy or making a specific change rather than the strategy or change itself. Number three, burning through cash. There are hundreds of technological tools for businesses that are impressive, effective, and downright fun to use. Unfortunately, if you subscribe to all those services or jump from one platform to another, you'll end up burning through so much cash that these tools become incredibly cost inefficient. And the last one, confusing your staff. You aren't the only one affected by your decisions and constantly alternating momentum. If you change your business's directions too frequently, your staffers won't be able to keep up. They give us a solution. I like that. If you come to the table with a problem, bring me a solution, right? That's like one of my things as a manager.
Yeah.
If you're going to complain, do you have at least a suggested solution? Anyway, we're not saying that we're going to use yours. But anyway, so how to overcome it. So the first idea is sit on ideas before launching them. Before you have your team begin work on that new project that's going on to change everything, take a moment. Do some more research on the idea and think about whether this is the best use of your company's resources. So I guess that's pretty much like straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The second idea is communicate with your team. When you have a new idea, talk to your team members about it. Ask them what they think and listen to their perspectives, concerns, and needs. Number three, set both long and short-term goals with each new project. Slow down when you start to shift gears. Set long-term goals for every project, including how long you anticipate the project will last. Short-term goals will help you close that gap and keep the team focused. And the last idea is abandon projects only when necessary. Once your long-term goals are in place, don't abandon the project until you get there. There are only exceptions would be if your project starts costing you far more money than anticipated, or the landscape has changed significantly enough to undermine the project's effectiveness entirely. So that's good. All right, so I'm digging that article, right? It's short, concise, straight to the point. It provided a solution and a better understanding of what shiny object syndrome is. But the thing is, jumping ship, like, I don't know if it's prematurely. It's like they said, sometimes you have to abandon projects that don't make sense, or that are bleeding financially.
Sure.
That makes sense. That's
Absolutely.
not necessarily it. So they're trying to differentiate that. They're saying, like, you're jumping from one thing to another without completing it, or just
throwing everything at the wall and see what sticks, but not really sticking to anything, if that makes any sense.
yes.
Sounds like business ADD. That's what it sounded like. But it sounded like it was okay, though. Like, it was okay to have this type of ADD.
Right. That's what we kind of like talked about. I don't know why it's always becomes like a thread like in our conversation. But I don't even know what it was. It was an article that I read where this guy was saying that we only have one emotion, and it's excitement.
Sure.
And it's how your excitement is released. It could be out of anger, it could be out of happiness, it could be out of all the emotions that we describe. And he says it's just excitement. You're just getting excited. It's just your energy field in a specific direction. Depending on that direction, that's the result of what you get. So in this sense, it's like they're saying, like, this disease of distraction could be a good thing if it's utilized correctly.
Sure. Right.
Because it's an energy, it's a characteristic, but it's also like an energy that you can then, almost like the emotion, point in the right direction.
Sure.
Because you can get super excited and move from one thing with another within one business. You know what I'm saying? There could be little things. And when you're an entrepreneur who's like a small business owner, you are the business, right?
Yeah.
Number one, you are the financier, you are the accountant, you are the the lawyer, you are the promoter, you're everything. So you have to have that
Excitement.
excitement, or that ADD, or jumping from like one thing to another. But if you're within your walls, within those four walls of, like, we're here at the Miguel's Riverside Barbershop, 105 Market Street in Bristol, PA. And I'm thinking about the small business, and if he's within these four walls, everything he's doing, he could be jumping from one thing to another. But if it's within his business, you have to, right? Mm-hmm. He's everything. Like, he's the bookkeeper. He's like ringing people up. He's cutting people's hair. He's the promoter. He's the face of the the business. It's all these things. I think that is when it's not bad. But if he was becoming a barber, and he's also, then he has like a like a tech business at home, and then when he leaves there super early in the morning, you know what I mean, and he's doing I don't know, something with like gardening and doing classes in gardening, it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we don't even know what you are. You know what I'm saying? But if you're doing all these endeavors and they're all somehow like related, then it makes sense. Absolutely. But if you're doing a million different things, and it's hard for people who are jumping ship. So when you go from like your day job and you're doing it because you have like, a career, right? And not that you lost passion for it, your passion for something else is much greater. Sure. And so before you jump the ship, you still have to do your day job. So that's when it becomes tricky, and that's where you got to be careful.
Sure.
For where you're allowing your focus, because they're paying you, a good money to do what you're doing. So you got to make sure that you're doing that. You got to make sure you're doing your job. And then the hard part is trying to switch that off enough for then you could focus on your other stuff that you got going on. Does that make sense? Yeah. I mean, that's almost just like, that's not that hard of a thing to do if you think about like when we go to school. For example, if like you take a part-time class or something like that, you have to shift gears. You're taking a biology class. Your career's not in biology. Sure. So you have to be able to learn how to turn off those things. I think that's a mental ability or disability that people have. You have to be mentally strong enough to be able to turn that switch and turn it on. And then drive that energy. You can't come home at 7 o'clock at night and completely drained and then focus on your stuff with no energy. That means what you're pursuing is not a passion. That can happen for one day. But if you're not whatever, like I've been up since 5 this morning or whatever, and I'm still going on like a maniac, but I get re-energized when I do this. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
When you work all day, and it's like, dang, yeah, I can be tired. I can see myself come home, eat dinner. Dinner is ready. My wife at this moment is still home from having our baby. I come home and dinner's ready. I'm like, I can get used to that. And I can also get used to just like kicking my feet up and not doing anything. That's what I'm saying. It's a mental capacity. Like, you have to be able to fight that. If you can't freaking fight that, then all you're doing is setting your other stuff back. If you're okay with that, then you're okay with that, then you're good. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you found your career and that's what you do during the day and then you're good at that, boom, that's it. That's what you have to worry about. But that's not what I'm not talking about that group of people, right? I'm talking about the people that are trying to pursue something on the side, like the side hustle is what they call it, while they have a career or just a day job. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You don't need to like figure too much out, and with understanding what your passion is. If when you go home and you're there's so many distractions and so many people will do what they want to do, regardless of what the excuse they have for saying why they can't do a certain thing. So what is your shiny object that seems to be constantly distracting you? If you could say, or how can you relate to this in any way? It doesn't have to be jumping from business to business, because obviously that wouldn't be the case for most of us. But is there something that has you constantly distracted in a sense? Or there's things that like if that pops, like if that crosses, like your desk, and that distracts you, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh dang, that specific thing. I know it's not specific to shiny object syndrome, but is there a distractor?
At work, for me, it's the reply email. Doesn't matter what it is. My inbox is my shiny, because I just want to be responsive and be constantly replying to inquiries. I could be in the middle of an email responding to the previous email I sent. And as soon as the other one comes in, I'm, good afternoon, how are you doing? And all of a sudden, it's just, I got 5 different screens open, all emails being started. And I'm like, and I didn't finish one.
That's a good example.
And I just can't seem to, and then I got to go back and then you got to figure out where you were at and saying, okay, what was I talking about?
What was your train of thought for that message?
And that becomes difficult because there's always, wearing different hats. There's always a phone ringing, somebody's asking you a question. It becomes difficult. But the email, the pop-up email, and then, I'm sure everybody's email is set up the same way. It's always in the right-hand corner. And it gives you, like, just a snippet. So you see the subject line, and it'd be like, RE, and then to whatever you said, whatever your title
what did he
is, your
say?
subject.
What did he just say?
Yeah. And it gives you three like lines of the email where it's like, sorry to hear. Oh nope, not happening. So I immediately just turn it off and go and do my thing. So that for me is the shiny object. I'm always chasing the next response,
the clear
the next
email box.
Yes, and that's impossible. It doesn't matter. I've tried to work like that. Doesn't matter. The freaking inbox is the death of me.
There's an obsession with that, though. That the reason why these companies, outside of what they are, and they're very good at what they do, but the reason why I believe that they continue to thrive, there's something else that's like a study that shows that people getting stuff delivered, and obviously that's one of them. Getting a piece of mail delivered to you, that people love getting mail, love getting stuff. It's like a little present, right? Yeah. And you don't know what it's going to be, and so it's that little unknown. Even if you do know it's like just a okay, thanks or whatever email, or it's a little package of, the new, whatever toy that you just ordered from Amazon.
I guess, and going to that point, that's what there's a whole bunch of different ones now, but there's mystery boxes that you get, and you pay like a monthly subscription, you get a random selection of whatever they pick for you.
You have no idea what you're getting.
Be like,
isn't that crazy?
What am I getting this month? I know what is going, kind of in the theme of what it is.
I've never heard of this. People pay for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. There's like clothes. There's like knickknacks.
Man, you don't remember that, like for baseball cards?
That's essentially. That's literally what.
Do you remember getting packs of baseball cards? You didn't know what you're getting.
Yeah. But I'm not paying a membership for somebody to give me something random. I would go and go buy.
This is the era that we're in.
Yeah, but technically you did do that. You paid for something random. You didn't know what was going to be in there.
Sure, but you knew we were getting a baseball card.
Cracker Jack box.
Yeah.
I know they have for watches. They do have a watch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really? And they send you on once a month.
They send you pay
so you
whatever.
have different. Yeah, there's different ranges. So if you're like the $50 range, they'll send you what they say it's a $75 to $100 valued watch for the $50 membership, because they get them in bulk, wholesale, so they can sell them cheaper. And then it just keeps going. Like there's a $250 one that you're getting. Apparently, you're getting like a $500 watch. Then they also, this one company, I forget what their name is. Though every month they throw in a random Rolex to a person who ordered like even if it was like $100, everyone's in the drawing. It's a monthly drawing or weekly drawing, something crazy where they're literally sending out somebody like a Rolex, like a real like a $5,000 watch or something.
And what's human beings' affinity to be like entertained? That's to me, it's a sense of entertainment.
It goes back to like the adrenaline and the rush of what am I getting this month? And it's like the thought of like the excitement of opening up a box, and you're like, I love what I was in there, or
everyone
I can
always wants to
understand
find
that.
something out that they don't know.
Yeah, I can understand
It's
that.
like
But what's,
nosy,
There's a
curiosity.
fascination of it. Yeah.
but what about what's the email? Why that's so stupid to me? Like, why is that my shiny object? Like, what am I chasing there? What am I, I'm just it's almost essentially
were
like
you
I'm chasing my tail.
progression of getting it done?
Well,
Is that
yeah.
what
I mean,
it
you
is?
said
You're
it
chasing the
yourself.
finished- the
I mean,
finished
you said
product?
you want to respond fast,
Yeah.
promptly. You want that to be your reputation.
Right, I
So,
guess.
and in your mind now, I mean, years we've been with email most of our lives. I know that sounds weird to maybe like a 20-year-old and younger right now.
Yeah.
But where was an era we didn't have email, so
Yeah.
to you, mastering that. So imagine mastering that thought for all those years. So in your mind, you're telling yourself, I'm a person that responds to emails fast. Or I'm a person that responds to emails in a very timely manner, right? And so if that's your reality, that's your life, you're gonna live up to that. Just like saying, like, I'm the best barber ever. I'm the best barber in this town, right? You're going to do your whole life, and the world and the law of attraction, how it operates, is going to do everything in its possibilities to make you the best barber in town.
You get competitive with yourself. You're
Yeah.
like, all right, like you said, you want to hurry up and bang out those numbers, make them smaller as fast as you can. It becomes a competition in your head in a small part of your job, your daily
Yeah,
job.
because it's one of the most. I mean, sometimes it's significant, but it's like the most insignificant part of my day.
Yeah.
Is just to respond to say thank you. But man, that thank you when I hit the send button, it's like accomplishment. I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's what it is, though. That little sense of that's almost like a to-do list. When you're knocking out items on your to-do list that we talked about last week, it's almost similar to that. There's something satisfying about. I remember when I first got in like management position or whatever. I'm like, there's so many things you have to handle now. So many little fires. You have to handle it right, like immediately. It can't wait till tomorrow, kind of things.
Because they start to compound on one another.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so there you have it. But do you go from one project to another without fully completing each?
Yes.
I'm going to say absolutely yes.
Yes.
Well, first of all,
Isn't that like ADD?
well, no, but it depends. Sometimes you can't finish the project, right? Like I think I might have alluded to this in our previous discussion, but so for example, like me and you had this meeting that was going to complete and make a final decision on this major project, but I come in the next day, that was like my only focus because this really needs to get done, and you call out. How am I supposed to get that done? That's just, it got put off, so now I'm going to focus on something else. So me jumping from one thing to another without completing one, that's a perfect example where that's what you have to do. And you can't just sit there, and also you can't let situations like that hold you hostage. And then you're paralyzed from now doing anything else, right?
Yeah.
So the other way is also bad, right? Just focusing on one thing is also bad. Like obsessively.
Yeah.
It's also studies shown that we can only do one thing at a time, literally. Like our brain can't have two separate thoughts simultaneously. It literally doesn't function that way. We think we can. We think we're walking and chewing gum, right? In the background, it's processing. It's firing at different times, though. You ever see like something in motion, like those, what are those cranks that like meet in the middle and they just keep spinning?
Like gears.
Yeah, like gears. There you
gears,
go.
yeah.
So these gears are like kind of like moving or whatever. Like they are. There's a lot of them going on. So they're working together, but they can't be doing the same thing. When one like a piece of the crank is the portion that sticks out.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
other
like the
one to match
teeth
is the
of
one
the
that's
gear.
The teeth,
The teeth is the one that's in.
Yeah.
For them to actually work together. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they're actually set at two different angles, right? For them to actually operate that way. So it can't be the same. So if it's the same, they're going to hit and butt.
Yes.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But anyway,
Yeah.
Do you get easily distracted?
I do.
Sure.
How so?
Absolutely. Well, me at work, I'm cutting hair, and I have like 2 other barbers working on the left or right of me. And if I'm in a conversation with someone, sometimes not the most interesting conversation with someone, but I'm ear hustling the conversation next door, and they're stuck on something like the gear thing, like and I know the answer. I'll just boom jump in and start shooting it, and then I kind of sometimes leave this person in the chair, like kind of. So I start talking, like jumping in their conversations,
Right.
and then then I'm cutting hair and I'm doing that at the same time. Then the phone will ring, and then all of a sudden I walk away and get distracted. I'll talking on the phone, and I don't know, answer whatever they want. That you set up an appointment. I'll come back and it takes me a second to like focus on what I just got done doing. But meanwhile, I wasn't paying attention like the past 2 minutes before that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it just gets all, I don't know, easily distracted in that sense for me.
Yeah.
I mean, you have no choice but to be. There's so much stuff going on in a barbershop.
Yeah.
Guys are talking so loud, wanting to be funny, and you're just like totally distracted. Like, oh, did that guy pay? Did that guy not pay? I wonder how much that guy tipped. I don't know. And meanwhile, is your guy happy? Is your guy not happy?
Oh, yeah, well, that's
who's in
it.
the bathroom? And you're constantly,
Yeah.
you're emotionally drained, I'm sure, by the end of the money.
Oh, no, yeah. Then there's things that people do that frustrate you, but you're trying to figure out a way how to, like, tell them in
Yeah.
like a nicely way.
Right. Yeah, I don't. For me, it's cleaning the house. I go clean every room.
Right.
Like a quarter of the way. I get it from my mom too. It's the worst. I'll do the dishes and I'll keep the dishes. I'll start the dishwasher and I'll keep the dishwasher open. All of a sudden, I end up upstairs because I want to ask my wife a question. So I start making the bed and I start folding clothes after I make the bed. And then there's more clothes in the dryer. And as I walk by the living room, I'll take the vacuum downstairs and start vacuuming.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I'll start
Yeah.
dusting.
Dude,
But at the end of the day, though,
It all gets
everything's done like
It does
the right
but
way.
I
You eventually
swear,
make your way back
it
around.
takes forever. And,
Yeah.
and at one point, I'm standing in my dining room like,
Every
all
door is open, every cabinet's
What do
open.
I attack first here? What do
Yeah.
we do? But
Yep.
that is the worst for me. Like I just can't for that I don't know what reason. I can't like just start one, finish, one, finish. And I try to get like the partner program with me and my wife.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let's go do this together. And she
Yeah.
looks at me. She's like, well, why don't we divide and conquer?
yeah.
You know, you do one and I do one. Meanwhile, she just like rushing to get it done, but I am very meticulous, and we start to argue. It's such a disaster.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm like the same way when I know, like, for example, like if I know like people are coming over or whatever, we're gonna hang out, especially like the nicer weather or whatever. So I'll be outside like wiping down the tables, getting things set up, whatever. And then I'll come inside for something like a paper towel or something because I ran out of paper towels. I'm like trying to wipe down this table. And I'll come in and I'll see something. Same thing. I'll see like shoes laying around in the living room. I'll stop, pick them up, walk them up before I forget. Oh, while I have this out there, let me squirt the windows or the door so I can clean the door. And I'm going to squirt it now. Now that it's wet, I have to hurry up and do what I'm doing. And I do all these little games and it's like literally I'm lost in my own world. Mm-hmm. But it all makes sense and it all somehow gets done. And in my mind, the best way. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like we get so like throughout our day, especially with, like let's just, for example, let's just say office setting, right? So you're at your desk answering an email, you get a phone call from, you could see it's a caller ID from somebody who you've been waiting the phone call. So now you completely stop what you're just doing. This person on the phone's talking about something totally different. And then a team member or a staff member comes in and asks you, needs a question answered immediately. Holy smokes, there's a lot going on here. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to appropriately manage that, right? But that's not just in that, setting. That's in our lives.
Yeah.
There's judgment calls that we're making all the time. Somebody was saying, like, I forget how many, it's like some obnoxious number, like hundreds of thousands of like decisions that we make on a daily basis. We think of decisions as like a little bit heavy. Like there's like a little bit of weight that comes with that.
But so many like minor decisions that you don't pay attention to.
Yeah. Should I take this way to work? Should I eat this granola bar on my way into work? Or should I wait and I'll eat with Josh? I'll have breakfast with Josh. Like they're not big decisions. Should I get gas on the way to work or on my way back? Like they're all little decisions, but they're you just keep piling them up on each other, and then that's when you have to manage. It's not that difficult. It's when you have those little things that you're deciding on that go into the back burner. Like who the heck cares when major decisions have to be made? Yeah. I don't know. Somehow like it works its way out. Do you have a hard time getting projects started?
Yeah, but it's because of procrastination.
Yeah.
Would it feel now? It's more because it's a fear of not actually accomplishing it. I don't want to start a project because then there's a super weight on your shoulders to get it done, and then it becoms cumbersome, and it becomes a burden, and then it
what's
gets out of
funny
control.
about that is a lot of the things that I started is because I'm like now you can't let the ball drop, and I did it like on purpose because I know I'm not. There's no way I'm letting the ball drop on that. No way. With my own self, like just being competitive with my own self. Mm-hmm. But it's funny because that same thought can keep you from doing stuff.
Yeah.
But that same one could be, or you get sick of something, and you just go nuts. Like, no, screw this, I'm doing it. Blah, 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 you go crazy or whatever.
It'd be one or the other. Definitely be a deterrent, or it could be a motivator. Just depends how you approach it.
But it goes back to like what we always said. Like you look at the whole project and get overwhelmed and like, oh, that's what you said. Like I don't feel like doing it anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then at that point it becomes you're just miserable.
As opposed to taking it one step at a time and like, oh, I can do this and this and this and.
House projects are always like that. Mm-hmm. You rip the wall down. It's like, all right, we'll do this, and then all of a sudden it just.
But usually that's something that turns into
all hell breaks.
9 other things went wrong along with the way.
You start with the dining room, and all of a sudden the kitchen's done, the new bathroom in the back. It's like, how do we get here?
And we have to replace the whole house.
Yeah.
So here's like a thought when you are in the middle of doing something and you finally get your focus on a project. What do you do? What happens if you then get an innovative thought for a new project or a new idea that is like legit, not just like one of your little random ones that like, oh man, I wonder how I could do this. I'm always, how can I efficiently do this?
Yeah.
Things better, faster, or whatever. But effectively too, not just rushing through things. What would you do with that? If that never happened to you, what would you do with that? So like you're in the middle of a project and like a really good idea pops in your head.
I've learned you take advantage of those things because that good idea, if not attacked or approached, may never come to fruition or may never actually be realized. I've done it a couple times where it's just like, oh, I'll go back and do that. And I never go back and do it. And sometimes I don't even remember what the hell it was, but it felt like it was going to be a good one.
Right.
Whatever that idea was, like, man, I really could have changed something. So if you got it, at least start it. If it's a good one, like if it really kind of gets you going and it's motivating you, why not go after it?
Or at least like, well, someone's like, you said like, oh, I got this, and I'll come back to it, and you forget all about it. Like, jot it down and like, oh, I'll come back to this later on, and maybe like see if something does grow from there.
At work, that becomes a problem because you're doing something, and all of a sudden this idea sparks in your mind. He's like, oh, I got to get this done, but man, next time this happens, I'll do that. Well, that might not happen for 2 or 3 more weeks.
Yeah.
And you're all of a sudden you're like, man, I had a really good idea on how to fix this, and there was a resolution here, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's always those opportunities to, especially for efficiency purposes at work.
Sure, absolutely.
I think that's like what Gabe said. That's like the best idea is to, when you do get like a quote innovative ideas, it depends. Obviously, it's situational, but jotting it down obviously is one thing. That's huge for me. Like in my notes in my cell phone is packed with ideas and all kinds of random stuff that I have. Just notes after notes after notes. Just, if I had a clothing line, boom, 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 I open that up, and these are all things that I would do or sayings I would have on clothing. And these are business ideas that I would have with some, and it just keeps going and going and going. And those are, quote, what I would call innovative thoughts, but I don't allow it, what I was trying to say before, paralyze me from what I'm currently doing. Because it's those little things. Sometimes it doesn't matter how innovative an idea is, you have to have the blinders on.
Yeah.
But like what Manny's saying, it could be such an innovative idea. It just depends, right? So it depends on how powerful. Is that a life-changing innovative idea? Or is that just like you're saying that's an innovative idea?
Right.
What's your judgment on the last 10 innovative ideas that you had, right? Because you could be like a silly idea when you're just making it an innovative idea. You know what I'm saying?
Trying to add more weight to it than
and that can be an excuse.
Sure.
Well, I had this innovative idea in the middle of me trying to do this project. That's the reason why this project's still not done.
Yeah.
And what happened to your innovative idea? Nothing. I couldn't approach it. It became too expensive, but I forgot to get back to my original project, right? So then we make these things up, and this is life. I mean, we are in control for a lot of things that we need to understand we are in control of. A lot of things don't get done because of our own minds, not because of challenges, right? That's not to say that there are not challenges, right? Life is there, and there's some things that are not, I believe that are not controllable, and I understand. But there's a lot, if we actually look at what is controllable and what your belief is to accomplishing something, it wasn't even an obstacle. It wasn't even really there. It was just a challenge that is testing your belief level, testing your faith level, whatever it is that's now become a blockage in your sight, your vision, your progression, and we just made it up ourselves. Because someone else could have went through that same obstacle and just ate right through it. Didn't even make it a problem, right? So we just got to understand that for ourselves. I'm not saying like there's no excuses.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's no reasons. I'm saying that there's good reasons to not start a project. There's good reasons to stop a project. But there's also good reasons to approach something and understand that it's your thinking that got you there.
Yeah.
Right? But anyway, so it was one of these quotes. I forget who said it. You can't, I guess it's like, you can't overcome a problem with the same mentality that got you there. Right? So now you have to upgrade how you think. Again, this goes back to how we operate as humans and how we perceive the world, life, and our approach and our belief in ourselves. Can I actually accomplish it, or can I overcome this? I don't know. But I'm the one who created the mess, so now I got to do something that's going to get me out. What do I do? Seek mentorship or some level of guidance, read a book. I don't know, whatever it's going to take, but it's going to be a new thinking, right? Because that old one didn't, got you in this mess.
Yeah.
So now you have to turn the switch. Something has to be added. How do you gain back your focus after you lost it? You as an individual.
You start with a small win.
Yeah.
You just, to get the momentum back, you start with a small win.
Small
Do
step,
something
yeah.
like reorganizing. At work for me is reorganizing the desk. Okay, that starts to make me feel better. Now the ball starts to roll. What was I doing? I get myself in the right frame of mind, whether it be at home or whatever the case is. I start with a small win, and then it kind of hopefully spirals into something that's productive or ends up being back to focus.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's pretty much how it goes. Unless sometimes people have like life-altering events or something like happen to them, or life-threatening events or whatever, where their whole life, whatever, has a paradigm shift and a complete change. That's not all the time though. That's the equivalent to like a miracle, literally.
Yeah.
And so when that doesn't happen, you don't just go balls out and complete something. I agree. You have to start small or start somewhere, and that somewhere could be small, it could be big, but as long as you're starting, any step forward. The world, the universe likes speed. So that's a little golden nugget. But anyway, how do you keep your kids focused on one thing?
I don't know. Hopefully the audience can email you or send some notes in on how to do
completely
it.
out of control.
Send some guidance.
Yeah, send some guidance in. Send some emails in that'll distract me from what I should be doing.
Distract you
I
from
don't
your
know.
kids.
I mean, I think they pick and choose what they want to be focused on. You know what I mean? Like, they have their own ideas and brains. Like, they just, I don't know how to get them to focus on one thing. I know how I do it. Take away whatever they're focused on, whatever they really enjoy, whether it be Xbox, whatever it is. Take them away from that, and all of a sudden they become focused on what you want to get back to what they want to get back to.
Yeah, I do the same. Like, it's like something I do purposely. It's like shock their thought process, and like without scaring them or like even touching them, literally. It's just like if James, same thing. Like sometimes I'm saying something to James, he's staring at the TV, which drives me crazy. I'm like, oh my goodness, look at that. So now I made what I'm doing way more attractive than what he's doing, and I'm staring out the window and there's nothing there.
So you made it the shiny object.
Yes. So then he walks out. He's like, what? I'm like, nothing. Do I have your attention? Yeah. What? I'm like, all right, well, we got to get ready. It's time to go. Blah, blah. And I'll say something like, get your shoes from the steps, whatever. And it's creating something that's that appears to be, and that's outside of like, yo, yelling or something
You're
or
snapping
clapping.
him out of his zone.
Yeah, it's just, but it's like it's in a different way. And I switch it up.
I was gonna say, does he get used to that?
Right. No, like I switch it up. I'm like, James, where am I? And I start pretending like I'm hiding. He's like, oh, where, Dad, Mom, what's that? Literally. And it gets him. Like, it's just,
like a little puppy.
Yeah.
Curious.
Right. He's jumping. I mean, that's what's working right now. I mean, guys, I only have a 4-year-old. It's not like I'm talking about a 15-year-old kid. Like, oh my God, look what's outside.
That'd be so awesome.
Yeah. And it's not bribery. I'm not saying like, oh, James, if you do this, I have a popsicle. Hey. I'm not even doing it. It's literally, it's nothing. But it's shocking his thought in a funny like way.
Sure.
That's different. To me, that works for James. I'm not saying that's going to work for everybody, but that works for James at the time, at the moment.
This moment,
Yeah. All right. So last question. What do you recommend someone not do to get so drawn into shiny objects and focus on their goals? What is your recommendation, basically, to somebody who's easily distracted?
What do people tell you? Try to keep you focused.
No one. The only person that probably could focus me is like my wife. And that's just in a different way. But I can't. I don't know if anyone can tell me, because then I'll get distracted on their thing or whatever they're talking about. I don't know.
See, it's hard to generalize.
I don't think anyone ever told me to focus, like, as a grown man. I think in high school.
Pay attention.
Yeah. I think, like, in school or whatever.
You need to focus on whatever,
but
it's kind of like up to you to kind of
most of the time when
what works for you.
When it comes down to that, then there's like probably like an issue with something.
Yeah.
You're sitting down with a couple people like, yo, you gotta relax what you're doing, focus on the right thing or whatever.
I
You know what I mean? Like it's always usually like it's
Yeah.
get back on track of whatever you got. You know what I mean? Unless it's like at work and you're having like team meetings and
that's
stuff like
that's
that.
what
Like,
I thought of. That's literally what I thought of.
Okay.
It was like when we had team meetings and something,
More like
like
a
an
corporate
approach
version
to
of it.
something, an approach to something is not working, and then we were like, all right, we need to refocus our energy on a solution and stop basically walking into a wall, because this is getting us nowhere. What let's refocus our energy over here, X, Y, and Z. Or sometimes we get hung up on something that's really not that big of a deal, and so then you get the whole, okay, let's refocus. Like that's nothing compared to like the obstacles we really need to be focusing on. So that makes sense, like when it comes to like work or something like that, project.
I think providing perspective is always good. Like when you're essentially chasing pennies while dollars are falling out of your pocket. You're like, what are we talking about here? We're talking about $13 when we're losing hundreds of dollars,
Right.
in this, wasting to trying to make this decision.
Right.
So providing kind of a different set of eyes or a different perspective always kind of brings you back to center.
Right, exactly. Like you have 4 employees who all get paid $25 an hour. That's $100, right? And you guys are trying to figure out a $50 problem, right? So now you're just losing money in that, and it takes you an hour to figure that out. I'm like, dude, it's obviously not that big of a deal, because now we just paid employees to stay after another $100, OT, and God forbid if it's like a time and a half. You know what I'm saying? That's a very basic example, but you're arguing over something that now you're losing money. All right, perfect. All right, so let's wrap the episode up with quotes. The first one by Daniel Goleman. One way to boost our willpower and focus is to manage our distractions instead of letting them manage us. Very good. And the last one by Alexander Graham Bell. Concentrate all your thoughts upon the work at hand. The sun rays do not burn until brought to a focus. That's pretty cool, right? So there you have it, folks. Shiny object syndrome. In this episode, the crew talks about gaining and losing focus on tasks. We covered topics that range from distractions, unfinished projects, multitasking, social media, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Daniel Goleman and Alexander Graham Bell. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyLeeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyLeeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.